Probably the most important thing I want to say to parents of teens is your kids are not going to be left out and they are not going to be socially isolated if they are not on social media. That is such a huge myth. I hear it all the time, and it's just not true. Kids have
Yeah.
so many other ways to communicate with each other. They can call and they can do FaceTime, and they do that even though they sometimes say it's cringe. My 15-year-old did that the other day.
Yeah.
This idea that they absolutely have to have social media to be able to be social just isn't true.
I won't lose hope in the night when the fire's growing dim. I'll just let go and I'll try. Help me walk this road and find my way back home. Find my way back home. Find my way home.
Welcome back to the Famous at Home podcast. We are in season 6 in a series called Relational Intelligence in Kids, and I'm so honored today to be able to introduce to you Dr. Jean Twenge. She is a generational expert. She wrote a book a number of years ago called iGen, really looking at the different generational impacts, but then more recently started to study the impact of mental health challenges because on kids and teens because of screens. She has a brand new book out called The 10 Rules for Raising Kids in a High-Tech World. What I love about Dr. Twenge is she's not just a researcher. She makes it incredibly digestible for you, a parent, to be able to implement in relationship with your children at home. We go through this interview. I'm telling you, we start early on. We go through the chronological pieces of this. I've been citing her research for many, many years, so I have really appreciated her work. And we start with little kids. So if you're someone listening today, you've got little toddlers, you're like, what do I do with the iPad? How do I manage this? She covers that. She covers the elementary years, preteen years, the teen years. What do you do when your kid's complaining that they're the only one who doesn't have the phone or the screen, social media, whatever it is? What do you do when your toddler's throwing a temper tantrum because you take the screen from them? We cover it all in this episode today. I would love to point you to the book. In the show notes, you can also check out Dr. Twenge's website, jeantwenge.com, and you'll see her books and her speaking events there. Without further ado, I think this is one of the most important topics of our day. I want to introduce you to Dr. Jean Twenge. Dr. Twenge, thank you so much for taking time, and welcome to the Famous at Home podcast.
Thanks for having me on.
It's an honor having you. So, Dr. Twenge, I would love to start just by asking you how you got started in this. You are an expert in generations, in particular, studying generations. And I think a lot of this started many decades ago, even at the advent of a lot of what we're seeing with screens today. Would you just help us understand, what got you interested in this, and how'd you get into this world?
Yeah, so, you're right. I've done lots of work on generational differences. And so in the 2010s, I was working with a lot of big surveys of teens. And those tend to be done every year. And every fall, when that new data comes out, I take a look at it and see what's going on. And I started to see some increases in symptoms of depression and in loneliness. At first, I thought it was just a blip, but then it kept going and going and going. And that made me wonder what possibly could be causing that. It
Mhm.
started around 2012 and it was misaligned with the economy, which made me think maybe it has something to do with smartphones. Maybe it has something to do with social media.
Interesting. I remember back then when I think it was 2010 that the iPad came out, and I remember they were
Mhm.
putting iPad holders on baby seat carriers,
Correct.
and I was like, "What is happening right now? Like this cannot be okay." And then I started looking at like Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and all these like tech CEOs who were protecting their kids, and I started to wonder, okay, what's going on? What do they know about it that we don't? Did you start seeing some of these trends as well? And that's really because that was about the time that you started seeing this data really pop up, right?
It was, yeah. Just huge increases in depression. Also, that the more time a teen spends on social media, for example, the more likely it is that they're going to be depressed. And I always thought that was really fascinating as well, that these tech executives would talk about how they didn't let their own kids
It's
use
fascinating.
their devices. And, one of the other stories that's told a lot is that in Silicon Valley, there's schools like the Waldorf School of the Peninsula,
Yep.
which don't
They don't
give
use it.
kids any kind of technology until high school, I think.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that's where a lot of tech executives send their kids. So as people sometimes put it, they follow the rule of drug dealers. Don't get high off your own supply.
So wild. Wow. You have a new book called 10 Rules for Raising Kids in a High-Tech World. What I love about your research, Dr. Twenge, is that you don't just do the research, you make it incredibly practical and digestible for parents to be able to implement. And I would love for you to just introduce yourself with a little bit of, in the book, you talk a little bit about your raising your own kids and some of the things you were finding when you gave them a Kindle early on. And I'd love for
Yeah.
you to kind of
hmm
start there a little bit, introduce your family to
hmm
us, and yeah, kind of what you were noticing even as a mom.
Yeah, so this is when my kids were pretty young. So when I was working on my book iGen, where I first started to make this argument that this adolescent mental health crisis was probably tied to smartphones and social media. So I made a graph for that book that was just a bunch of different ways that kids and teens could spend their time. And it turned out all the things that involved a screen were linked to more unhappiness. All the things that usually aren't on a screen, like exercise and sleep and spending time with people in person, went the other way. They were
Wow.
linked to less unhappiness and thus more happiness. It was really, really stark. And I made that graph. I pushed my chair back from my desk. I got up and I grabbed my two kids. I have three kids, but at the time, two of them had these Kindle Fires. I grabbed them and I shoved them in the back of a dresser drawer and
Wow.
just
Yep.
said, you
You're
know what?
done.
That has to be the end because, you know, those were pretty locked down. They only had like kids' videos on them. They had un unlimited books. And so our idea was, okay, maybe they'll watch a video from time to time and they'll mostly use them to read books. And it was exactly the opposite. Once the hour of video time we gave them was over, that thing was like a brick and they just walked away from it and they pretty much never
It's
read books
crazy.
on it. Like, okay, hour a day, that was our compromise position. But you know what? If they're not watching the hour a day on this Kindle, if they don't have their own device, that's going to cut down on the overall amount of time. They'll get an hour back in their day. And that's exactly what happened. And I didn't get as much pushback as I thought. And the kids at the
Wow.
time were, let's see, I think 9 and 7.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fascinating. And
Mhm.
I want to jump into getting practical for those listening, and because this book is incredibly practical, highly recommend it. We'll put it in the show notes today. I would love for you to talk a little bit about. I'm going to give you some scenarios, and I'd love for you to answer some of those scenarios. You answer pretty much every one of these in this book, but I'm thinking about those driving down the road right now, listening. You realized you thought you would get a little more pushback. What about the pushback from kids coming home because cell phones are being dished out, the drugs are being dished out at a younger age now, and a parent who's trying to hold the line and their kids are saying they are pushing back. I'm the only one. I'm the only
Mhm.
one. I'm the only one. Encourage that parent.
Yeah. So I'll start with I'm not being entirely serious, but sometimes I think if your kid is the only one, that means you won.
Oh, so
You
good.
got there. Um, but, in a more
Yeah.
serious note,
Yeah. It's so good.
I think I try as much as possible on my own family and in this book to find some sort of happy medium. But it's hard because the norms these days are so insane. The idea
Yeah.
that we're going to give 10 and 11-year-olds smartphones, that 12-year-olds are going to be on social media, or even 11 or 10-year-olds. So, you have to kind of concede that, okay, maybe you're going to be a little out of step with the norm, but that's okay because there are ways to try to capture the good without most of the bad. So one of those is, okay, yep, you should be giving that smartphone at that young age. Try to go as long as possible without giving them their own device at all. But like what we've done with our younger two kids who are now 15 and 13 is give them a basic phone designed for kids. So then they can still text their friends. Yeah, and both of them, I think, are the only ones without smartphones. But because they can text
Amazing.
their friends and have access to a few limited apps, it hasn't been as big of a deal.
It's
And
amazing.
that has worked out reasonably well.
Yeah. No, it's so good. And any parent that I've ever interviewed who has restricted who their kids are now raised in 20s, 30s, whatever,
Yeah.
not usually 30s, but 20s just because of the dates, but it's like they held off, they didn't do this. And I talked to those 20 somethings today and they're still using flip phones and they're going, "Yeah, we tried it when we left and we didn't like
Mhm.
it." And I'm like, "Oh
Yeah.
my goodness, like if we can just stay the
Yeah.
course." And you talk about
Yeah.
that in there that a lot of times
Yeah.
the myth would be, oh my word, if I withhold it, when my kids do get it, they're going to go crazy.
And that, as far as I can tell, is a complete myth.
Yeah.
It's that when they get it, then they know how to live without it.
Yeah, that's so good. I read that
Hmm.
in there and I thought, thank you for that because I have seen that play itself out in real life
Hmm.
over and over again. Let's go all the way back. Let's go chronologically. Let's talk to the parents who are in those early years,
Yeah.
iPad kids. Let's talk
Hmm.
about like what are some limits you would set in those early years and encourage that parent.
So I think the first thing is don't give your kid their own device. Don't give them their own iPad, their own Kindle Fire. So that way, it's just easier to control what they're doing. So they want to watch Bluey or whatever show they're into,
Big
have them
time.
watch it on the living room TV.
Yeah.
And look, I know that's annoying. When my oldest is 18, and when she was a kid, iPads didn't exist when she was that age,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4. And so we watched a lot of Oswald, and which I love.
Amazing.
I love that show.
Yeah.
But I didn't really want to. I didn't really want to hear that. But the advantage of that is then you know what they're watching. They're
Yeah.
not flipping to the next thing on YouTube, and who knows what that is. And there's not autoplay, and it's not like this continuous thing, and it's not their own device. So then I know often the next question is, what if I'm on an airplane? What if I'm,
Mm,
in a car? And I do sometimes say on the airplane, all bets are off. So, but
yeah.
they don't have to have
Yeah.
their own device. Give them yours,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you can have limits on that. I do think we have to not say all bets are off in other situations, like going on a walk or going out to dinner or having
Yeah.
friends over, because those are all situations where they can develop social skills. They can learn, how to behave in those types of situations. And if you have to take them out of the restaurant, you have to take them out of the restaurant.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah.
and I've been there, trust me.
Yeah.
I know how that goes. And you tell the waiter or waitress to bring the kids' food first.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, you you do
Get
all
them
those little
fed because
things.
you've got to
Yep.
make sure they're fed so that they're
Yep.
not losing their minds. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. It's wild because, I think about us. I mean, we're the last generation that will remember life where there was no technology, no
Yep.
and that's sad to me to think about. I'm hoping and I do believe there will be a trend the other way. I think people like yourself, Jonathan and Jonathan Haidt, are leading that charge in many ways, which I'm so grateful for you guys. Um, Speak to then, so if a child's the child's already there, right? Oh, they have their own iPad, they have their own thing, and I try to take it away and they lose their ever loving mind. Speak to
Hmm.
that parent.
Well, then you did the right thing in taking it away,
Yeah, so good. Yep.
right? And look, I know that's not going to be easy, but it will get better pretty quickly, especially for younger kids. Yeah, they might have that meltdown, but they will learn to adapt. Kids that
Yeah.
age are very, very, very adaptable. So
Yeah.
you have to kind of push through that initial resistance because if you're getting that much resistance, I think that really does speak to, I mean, I don't know what your word to use, if it's addiction
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
overdependence.
Well, and the hard part is their brain becomes wired for it.
Exactly.
Right? Like neurobiologically, their brain
Mhm.
becomes wired for it. And I was going to ask you this too, speaking to the data that shows that even when we're like we have a 5-year old right now, so we have a 13, 11, and 5-year old, and our 5-year
Mhm.
old, I mean, he's into the Bluey, right? But it's like I'm into the Bluey. Like Bluey is like a cool show, and when you can sit down, the data that shows when you're watching it together versus a child watching a show alone,
Mhm.
actually is significantly better for them than if they're sitting alone watching the show. Now, I know that's not feasible for the
A,
mom and
a
the
lot of
dad
parents
who
would say that would defeat the
it
purpose,
would
and I
defeat the
understand
purpose.
that
That
argument too.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah. But it's
And
it's all about limits. If they want to, if they're going to be watching Bluey for an hour a day, no big deal, especially if
yep,
it's on that living room TV.
yep.
It's when you get to the excessive use and you get to where they're on their own device and can't do without it, and they have the meltdown when you take it away and all of that. That's when you have problems.
And speak to that because that's where I first came across some of your research back with iGen and that sort of thing, probably 10, 12 years ago, was that 1 hour. That 1 hour of, can you speak to that? Because I think that's incredibly insightful.
Yeah, it again, it's happy mediums. So it just to share, a more recent statistic, US teens now spend 5 hours a day using social media. Not screens overall, just
It's just
social
social
media.
media.
Now that includes TikTok and YouTube, but still,
Wow.
that's just so excessive, right? And what we know from the studies on depression and unhappiness is, yeah, in most studies, you're watching videos up to an hour or so a day. It really doesn't have much of a link to depression or unhappiness. But you get beyond that, each hour it builds up. And then you get the by far the worst outcomes at those very, very high levels of use. And it's true for watching videos and TV for younger kids too. It's not just social media. And some of that is because TikTok and YouTube Shorts have blurred the line between social media and videos. And because
Oh,
short videos are different from watching an episode of Bluey, and having autoplay is different from an end of an episode. So there's distinctions that have to be made here too.
that's interesting. And is that increasing inattention in kid like the shorts?
That's the guess. I haven't researched that myself, but certainly given the number of teens, not to mention adults, who can no longer sit down and read an
A
entire
book.
book
Yeah.
or even a chapter because our brains have gotten so used to switching our attention.
Yeah.
And that's especially true with those short videos, especially true on a smartphone where it's like boom, 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 like every few seconds. And when you try to sit down and focus on something for longer than a few minutes, your brain is like, what's going on here? Where's my next hit?
Where's my next hit? Well, and even
Yeah.
I remember even back, this was even early on too, Dr. Christakis up in Washington, like studying the number of screen changes in a television
Yes.
program and how even A Day at the Farm, little Einstein's was actually creating inattention in children. And
Yep.
Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood being the one television program that didn't create inattention because it was the screen changes. He
Yep.
was just way before, like just unbelievable.
Yeah.
If you could speak, let's come up to now the like we're in those preteen years, 11 to 14, that
Hmm.
sort of range where it's like, hey, we're dropping them off at jiu-jitsu or we're dropping them off at
Yeah.
violin practice or whatever it is,
Hmm.
and it would be nice to communicate. Speak to that if you would.
Yeah. So I think at that age, let's say 11, if you can put off giving them any kind of phone, do that.
Yeah,
So
good.
if, yeah, martial arts practice ends at a certain time, it'll be fine. If their bus stop's relatively close, they're going to be fine. Or if they're walking home from school. I mean, think about how many generations of children walked home from school or took the bus
Exactly.
without a
I was gonna
phone, right?
say
I
you
mean,
and
we
I
could
did
start
it.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
So you can start there.
yeah.
Um, if you do have a type of situation where, it's going to be convenient to get them a phone. So what some parents will do is get like a flip phone or a watch. Watches, you got to be super careful because there's a lot of parents of even like 6 and 7 year olds who give kids
Oh,
watches.
wow.
A lot of those watches you can watch YouTube on them.
Oh, wow.
Um, Second grade, first grade teachers are now talking about how distracted their kids are by their watches. So
Good
again, try to put off
grief.
any device like as long as you possibly can.
Yeah.
But if they do end up in that situation where um, not only do you need to contact them, but also they really want to text their friends, what I suggest is a basic phone designed for kids. So my younger two kids still have one of these. You know, they're 15 and 13 years old. And things like Gab,
Yeah.
Pinwheel, TrueMe, Bark, those are examples of those phones. And in most cases, they have no internet browser, no social media, and important for today, no AI companions, like AI boyfriends and girlfriends.
Oh my
Because like if,
gosh.
as if we didn't have enough to worry about, this is the new thing. There are
Speak.
all of these apps that will do that now.
Okay, so if you're listening in, 10 rules for raising kids in a high tech world, we're going to put it in the show notes. Everything Dr. Twingy is talking about today is in this book. And if you want to go deeper and you have a question that's burning within you, we're going to put it in show notes. Please go get this book. Speak to the AI boyfriend and girlfriend.
Yeah, man. So this is now happening that 12, 13-year-olds are having their first experience with a quote romantic relationship with these chatbots. And
Golly.
there's in some cases tragic results from this. There's already been a couple of
Suicides or,
suicides that have been
oh
highly
gosh.
publicized, linked to these. But I mean, even apart from those extreme outcomes, do you really want your 12 or 13-year-old to be chatting with a bot, with sexy chat,
Oh
which
my
is out
gosh.
there? So I know about some of these things from uh, ads that pop up. I also see them on because my kids have those the phones designed for kids. There's a list of banned apps,
Okay. Yeah.
eye-opening to say the least. I
Gosh.
have a list of those in the book, and they just blew my mind. And I think this is something. And look, I've been doing research on in this area for almost a decade, but we did not grow up with these technologies. I
No.
think, and I don't think we should be ashamed of this, that we don't even have the tip of the iceberg in terms of some of the dangers here.
Yeah.
And reading that list of the banned apps, I immediately put it into the text of the book because I couldn't believe some of them. And that those AI boyfriends and girlfriends were ones where, so let's just like,
Yeah. Go. Yeah.
in case somebody's saying, hey, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
Think about, let's just take a 13-year-old boy, downloads one of these, gets attached to it, and then maybe wants to talk to a girl at school. Well, what has he gotten used to? He's gotten used to sexy chat being on all the time and always agreeing with him and always affirming because that is what these AI chatbots are designed to do, to always be affirming. Then how do you have a relationship with an actual human being?
Ooh. Gosh. And the consequences and ramifications of that down the line
Hmm.
are
Yeah,
just absolutely
yeah,
mind-boggling to me. It
yeah.
makes me so sad.
Hmm.
Um, can you speak to video gaming
Hmm.
as well? Just
Yeah,
share a little bit of that. Yeah, what your thoughts would be. Practicals.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I go into that a little bit later in the book because there is some truth to, hey, kids play these games with friends. They're in real time. They're not as obviously toxic as a lot of social media and video apps. But in excess, they are also linked to depression.
Yeah.
So it's again just setting reasonable limits
Yeah.
on how long they're playing the games.
And again, would you hold to that 1 hour? Because basically, like after that 1 hour, I've stuck to that in my own home, even with my
I
own
think I
life.
especially on school nights, that's a good rule. I know a lot of families expand that on the weekends,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
I think that's something where there might be a little bit more flexibility, just because for a lot of kids, especially boys, that is the way that they communicate with their friends.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
maybe you could go to 2 hours on the weekend.
Yeah. Boy, we're
If you have a kid in that situation where that's the primary way that I mean, look, ideally you want to get those kids together in person. You want
yes.
to
Yeah.
have them, maybe be talking on the phone or so on, but my kids often say that that's cringe.
Yeah.
Um,
It's funny.
yeah.
Cringe.
Hmm.
And sus.
Yeah, oh, I've gotten an education in
Yeah.
all of
These
the Gen
words
Z
today.
slang. Yes.
I,
I even know what a lufufu is.
I don't. I
So
don't.
there are these dolls called Labubus, and there are fake Labubus, and people call them Lafufus.
Oh,
That's
did
your
not
trivia for the day.
did not even know that. That's fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's wild to me that even what's scary because what all of these technologies are doing is they and Nicholas Carr talked about this, long
Hmm.
ago is
Yeah.
they're dumbing our brains down. You know,
Yeah.
it's creating shallow, and now with AI even more so. You know, I
Yes.
remember when we were just simply the data on the hippocampus for taxi cab drivers who use
Right.
GPS and who didn't use GPS. And you're going,
Right.
oh my gosh, like our brains are thriving when we don't use GPS. But for, it's like now imagine just asking a bot, every piece of
Hmm.
knowledge. And
Hmm.
it
And
is,
to write your papers,
and to
and
write,
then you don't learn how to write, which means you
oh,
don't learn how to think.
and as a college professor, oh my
Oh,
goodness,
yes. Yes, this definitely
we're
hits
in
me on a personal level.
new territory right
Hmm.
now. Like it's like, oh my word. So we have about 5 minutes left, and I really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us and just share some of this research. I've been following you for many years. I really want you to spend these last 5 minutes, if you would, talking to the parents of teenagers, talk
Hmm.
to them in particular. Jonathan Haidt has his recommendations. Would love for you
Hmm.
to share your recommendations and kind of yeah, what should we be paying attention to with our teenagers?
So I agree with John that kids should not have social media before 16 and put it off till 18 if you can. And I think that probably the most important thing I want to say to parents of teens is your kids are not going to be left out and they are not going to be socially isolated if they are not on social media. That is
Mm.
such a huge myth. I hear it all the time, and it's just not true. Kids have
Yeah.
so many other ways to communicate with each other. They can call and they can do FaceTime, and they do that even though they sometimes say it's cringe. My 15-year-old did that the other day. She was FaceTiming with a friend for a couple hours, but they can text their friends. If they want to see information, they have the rest of the internet.
Yeah.
This idea that they absolutely have to have social media to be able to be social just isn't true. And if they're in a group of friends and, they're setting up things about how to see each other on Instagram or Snapchat or whatever, then have that conversation. Tell your kids, talk to your friends about this. Hey, can we do this via text instead? My
Yeah.
18-year-old, who has such a great perspective on this, she said, any friend of yours who will exclude you for not being on a certain app is not really your friend.
Oh, so good. Oh, I would love. I feel like next time we need to interview your 18-year-old and let her
Oh,
speak
she
to
would love it. She
let
would
her
love it.
speak to
She's
every.
great.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh,
Yeah.
she's
She
phenomenal.
had a flip phone until she was 16 and a half.
Oh,
Um,
amazing.
yep. And she's now in her first semester of college and she graduated high school early and joined the Navy. So she's in the Navy Reserves. So she's a real adult.
Well,
Like
and you dedicate the.
she
I noticed
really
you
is. That's
dedicated the
right.
book to
That's her
her.
right there. That's
Yeah,
right. Yeah. And because she's shipped off to boot camp instead of just going to college, um,
this is awesome.
yeah, it was very much wow. She's an adult now.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's so cool. Good for you. That's just
Yeah.
amazing. I saw that open. Like as soon as I got the book and I opened it up to the dedication page, and I'm like, oh my word! Like this was
Yeah.
what a sweet gesture on your part, and kudos to her. For
Yeah.
me, the goal is, I think about this in raising my own kids. I want to raise resourceful kids because resourcefulness is linked to
Yes.
confidence.
Absolutely.
And the more that we can, it sounds like, I mean, obviously you're crushing it over there doing it that way. Like it's like it's like to see our children have confidence. And I love what your daughter says is, yeah, if they don't want to be your friend because you're not on there, then they're really not your friend. And I
Hmm.
think those are that such important wisdom. Before we close, speak to the parent. I love the rule about the spaces in the house because we have to live this as well if we want our kids to
Yes.
live it. Would you
Mhm.
just speak to the parent and even that rule in particular?
Yeah, well, there's a couple things about just having phone-free areas and times. And the most important one is no electronic devices in the bedroom overnight
Yeah, it's good.
and at bedtime. So there's a bunch of studies on this, and there was a new one that just came out a couple months ago. I was able to sneak into the book just as it was going to press
It's amazing.
about scrolling in bed right before kids go to sleep is uniquely bad for sleep. So that's a time and place we got to get the devices
Get
out.
it out of there. Yeah,
Yep.
so good. And having a separate place in the house, right? That you can,
Yep.
or have tech-free spaces in the
Yeah.
house as well, right? Like,
Yeah. Like
for all of us.
the dinner table.
Yeah,
And then, yeah, having a charging station. I'm going to go into there's lots of different ways to get the phones out of the bedroom, for example. But yeah, having a charging station or even a lockbox for the phones, and just try to have times and places when the phones aren't in the picture. And that often has to go for the adults too. So
yeah,
if
that's
you're on
right.
vacation and you want to have a conversation with your kids in the car, then you need to put your phone down too. If you
That's
don't
exactly right.
want your kids to be on their phones at the dining room table, you probably need to put yours away too.
Yep, that's exactly right. They do as we do, not as we say. And I just think too, for our own well-being, for our own mental health.
Absolutely.
Gosh,
Absolutely.
yeah. Dr. Twenge, thank you so much for joining me today. I am so honored to have you, and just love your research. 10 rules for raising kids in a high tech world. Check the show notes today. Make sure you go get it. And thank you again.
Thanks very much.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with Dr. Twenge. I am so grateful that we had the opportunity to be able to, that you got to be able to hear from a true, like someone who's in the research, someone who's living this. She's at the forefront of this. And she's taken, I can't imagine the amount of slack she's taking from the tech giants, from all the people, really, as she is, I mean, she's testifying on Capitol Hill about this. She is really at the forefront of this movement, and I am so grateful for her. I really want to also help point you guys. We are talking about these things in Kids RQ. Want to make sure you check that out. You can join the foundings members rate right now through the fall. Check that out. We would love to have you in there. We do weekly Kids RQ phone calls, coaching calls. Would love to see you on those weekly calls as well. If you have any questions, check out the show notes. Email us. Let us know. We are talking about managing screens often in these calls and within the content itself. So we would love to have you. Thank you for joining us this week. If this episode or this topic rings true to you in any way, would you go to famousathome.com to the podcast page? We'll put it in the show notes today. Let us know any other topics that you would love us to talk about as it relates to kids, screens, relational intelligence, marriage, the whole 9 yards. What's on your heart? We want to hear from you. Would you go check that out today as well? Keep in mind, until next week, the greatest red carpet you will walk is through your front door.